I will never, ever post on Instagram again because he's now weaponizing my life.
In a world of hurt and pain, we find a way to break the chain. A caring heart, a guiding light, lead us through the darkest night. With preservation in our soul, we'll rescue those who've lost control. Escape the grip of a narcissist on our journey to recovery bliss. Welcome to the Narcissist Abuse Recovery Channel with John and Padideh Jafari.
Padideh, it's good to see you again. It's good to see your face. That's what I say every time.
Yes, it's good to see you too, bestie.
How are you doing?
I'm doing well, just recovering still from my ankle injury, but otherwise, God has been good to me. I cannot complain.
Wonderful. I'm getting over my Lyme. I'm about a month and a half since treatment, and I call myself about 80% better for the most part. I still have what I call energy issues, which are some days I'm done at noon and I can't function so much more. You know what was really surprising with the Lyme disease, Padideh?
Yeah. What was
really the thing that was really surprising about the Lyme disease was the brain fog.
Oh, gosh.
You ever had brain fog before?
Yes, in perimenopause last year, remember I kept talking about that on this recording. You get brain fog, and it's awful. You can't remember what you can't remember. It's just awful.
Like sometimes you're stuck in the middle of a sentence and you can't remember something specific or remember where you were going, and that was a real surprise, and that kind of lingers a little bit. Hopefully it doesn't affect our podcast today.
Yes. So we're talking about something very, very important today. What's our topic today?
So our topic today is talking about when your kids come back. And let's kind of set this up a little bit so you understand. There are a couple of different kinds of situations with children. One is where your kids are much younger and either they get transferred from one spouse to the other, maybe narcissist spouse to the healthy spouse. But what we're talking about today are more kids who are kind of old enough to know what's going on, old enough to figure out what's going on. We'd call them adult children in some respects. Maybe that's 15, maybe that's 16, maybe it's 14, maybe it's 25, maybe it's 30. But we're going to talk about when kids come back to you after you've been estranged. We talked some about parental alienation, and in parental alienation, your narcissist speaks so badly about you over what is normally a long period of time. It's not like they have one conversation and tell your kid that you're a shithead and it ends right there. Usually it's more like, the jagged stone thrown into a river, and as the water goes over it over time, those jagged edges become kind of smoothed out and the rocks become rounded and smooth on the other side. It's really more like that. It happens over a period of time where your kids have been alienated from you, and then suddenly, for whatever reason, they show back up in your life.
Yep.
So I've got 4 children. I have been estranged from all 4 of them at some point in time. My oldest, I had a relationship with for about a year. Then she kind of went off the deep end and said, see ya never, I think were her exact words. And I wasn't then in touch with her for another 4 years until just recently, maybe in the last 3 months or so. My youngest also was estranged from me as well. And she basically told me up front she didn't want to talk about anything that happened. She was gone for maybe 3 or 4 months, maybe even 6. It could have been as long as that. This was really early on now, 6 years ago. And then said, you know what, I kind of want back into your life and back into relationship with you. And then the 2 in the middle are I'm still estranged from, and I've had no real conversation with one of them at all since he found out we were going to get divorced. And the other one had one conversation with me and has never been back since. So I've messaged here and there. I've tried to give them their space. But interestingly enough, I think that there are, when your child suffers from parental alienation, you have to understand what you're working against. It's not just a bad conversation, but it's a lifetime of speaking badly about you. So I don't feel like, and I've tried this. There's no one conversation that is going to fix the problem. Padideh, have you ever been in a situation like this with anybody you know where you had those issues?
Well, so I have three adult stepchildren. I don't have children of my own. But I will say that the alienation started the minute that the child is born. So
I would agree.
they triangulate. So by the time that you get divorced, whenever that is, they've been alienated from you your whole life. The only thing that you don't know is that you don't know this.
That's
And
exactly
so
true. I
and
absolutely did not understand that I'd been alienated.
yes, and the reason and like because you and I are best friends, I know this about your case as well, but I also know it from clients. Like they've been alienated when the child was born because what the narcissist will do is the narcissist will speak bad or undermine or whatever it is or disrespect, and the child learns that through the actions, right? They say children learn through actions, not through words. And so by the time you go get divorced because you're like had enough or you're suicidal and like you said it was either me living or me dying and I chose life for myself.
Right.
And so the child is definitely going to go with the narcissist because A, they don't want to disappoint that parent and they don't want the repercussions of what that looks like. And B, they're already thinking, well, daddy was a bad person, or mommy was a bad person. And so they already were like brainwashed to learn that early on. So that's what I know as a practitioner. But I don't, I haven't seen that, but I will give you one example later on in this
Okay.
podcast. But I want to know from you, like, I know all four children of yours reacted differently to the divorce. So do you want to go through all of like how they acted?
Yeah, well, 2 are just done. You know, they're still estranged, and my framework for kinda how to approach this actually comes from the Holy Scriptures. Padideh and I both said we're Christians and we're not preachy, but this is kind of our frame of reference. So, there's a passage in the Scriptures that is about the prodigal son, and basically this son of a wealthy landowner shows up to his dad one day and says, "By the way, I want the money you'd give me when you're dead. I want my inheritance now." And by some act of God, for whatever reason, the father decides to give it to him. And the son goes out and squanders the cash. He's out off partying and banging whatever he can bang and smoking whatever he can smoke and drinking whatever he can drink. And he has this basically a party time in life. Then the cash runs out. And he winds up getting a job. In the scriptures, it talks about him feeding the pigs, and he's got pig slop going on and stuff like that. And he has this moment of realization. It says, he's realizing that he's feeding the pigs and pig slop, and he goes, you know what? I'd be better off as a servant in my dad's house than doing what I'm doing here. So he decides he's going to go back to dear old dad and say, hey, can I work at your place? And it says, and in this moment, the scriptures say, and then he came to his senses. Really important phrase there. So the boy goes back, and dear old dad is actually kind of waiting down at the end of the driveway for his kid to come back, kind of run towards him with open arms. And instead of making him a servant, he makes him a son again. And that's the end of the story. And I like to think that with narcissists and parental alienation, the kids are away kind of like that prodigal son. And they got to go figure some stuff out when they come back. And I think there are different levels of having figured it out. And with my kids, the two that have returned, I would tell you that I don't think they've got a lot of it figured out. They still have very close relationship with their mother. They've still refused really to talk to me much about the divorce and my perspective. They're not interested in my perspective. And if they come back without a, coming back to your senses moment, it may not be the grand reunion that you had hoped for. And I have to tell you, Padideh, I think in my from my perspective, while I'm glad I'm talking to 2 of them, it's very hard some days because I don't think they have a whole lot of understanding about what really went on in their own home. And I again, I don't fault them for that. They were raised in this. So it's again like a stone in the river or a frog in the kettle. The heat gets turned up and you realize you're in the kettle one day, but you don't necessarily feel the heat. And I don't think they've really realized so much what the kettle was like. So that can be difficult.
Right. We have a lot of discussions about this, obviously offline. And my thing is this, and maybe this is because I don't have biological children. I don't know if it's our place to really talk to them about the other parent and what happened because they are children. Even if they're 50 years old, they're still your kid. And I think it's just important to restart your relationship with them and say, you know what, whatever happened in the past, that's between mom and I or dad and I. But I really want to have a meaningful relationship with you going forward. And one thing I know, John, you never do is you never talk bad about their mom. My husband is the same. He never talks bad about his ex-wife. They've even said that. The boys have actually said that to us.
Yep.
And they've said, they say, you guys never speak bad about her. But I will tell you this. The middle one that went away for college, he came back and he was living with his mom for about 6 months and he couldn't find a job. We were trying to help him, but he's a little bit stubborn in the sense that, he thinks he knows it all, which, if you have a kid like that, you understand. And she started to brainwash him again and brainwash him again. And he wrote this, I think, 4-page letter. I sent it to John and talking about how awful my husband was and how now his mom has got his back and all this stuff, which is interesting because before he went away to college, he told us, he said, once I'm done with college, I'll never move back to her house and she will never see me getting married or my kids. Like he was very firm on like, I want nothing to do with my mom after I graduate. And he went away. He was like much further away from both of us. But we'd go visit and everything. But now that 6 months he was in her home, he was singing a different tune and wrote this 4-page letter. Long story short, once he got the job and everything, he came back and he didn't apologize, but he said, I was under a lot of stress. But the things that were in that letter, I sent it to John and I actually sent it to my sister. It sounded like her. It sounded like the mother was writing this about how awful my husband is. And so what I want to tell you is never during this process did we give up on him. Never during this very difficult time of trying to figure out, okay, what do we do? Did we give up on him? Knowing that the narcissist was behind this all along. And John gave my husband actually a really good idea. He said, next time you talk to him, I want you to do either FaceTime or I want you to go back. I don't want to say where he lives, but I want you to go back there. Have your husband fly back there and talk to him face to face. And John, that I don't think I've ever thanked you enough. That was such good nugget of wisdom because once my husband saw him on FaceTime, and I remember because I didn't want to be in the room, but I remember I said, I just wanted to say hi to him, but he was like resting on a pillow in his bed. But like once my husband saw him, he like broke down and then the son broke down too. And he was like, Dad, I just want you to blah, 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 blah. And so it just broke the ice. But to John's point, every kid is different and you have to treat them differently. But I want to say one thing. John told me this and he said this on the podcast. He said, when he decided to get divorced from his ex-wife, she said, one of our children will never talk to you again. So talk to me about that because that ended up becoming true.
Yeah, that's my son, and that may very well be true. I tried to reach out to each of the kids. When I told my ex I wanted a divorce, and I wanted a conversation with them to at least give them kind of a bird's eye view of my perspective on it. I wasn't it again, Padideh says you don't speak badly of another person. I have taken that to heart. It's a macro view of why I was leaving. I felt like they deserved an explanation, and I reached out to him and asked him if we could talk, and he continued to ignore me and put me off, and then eventually said, "You know what? When I'm ready to have a conversation with you, I'll let you know." That was 6 years ago, more than 6 years ago now, 6.5, almost 7. So I don't necessarily have a lot of hope for that relationship, or the other child necessarily that's estranged from me. Um, but I think your kids can come back as adults, and they can come back with some understanding. I've had other friends who were children of narcissists who ultimately realized how narcissistic their parent was and how this parent had spoken badly and set up this bad narrative about the healthy parent. And it can take 10 or 20 years. This friend of mine, Dave, God rest his soul, he's no longer with us, but he'd been estranged from relationship with his dad for years and thought his dad was always the schmuck. And over time, he realized what was going on with his mother, and ultimately had very little relationship with her and went kind of back to his dad. And with this understanding, he came to his senses and their relationship changed. I've always wanted to be the dad who was kind of waiting down by the driveway with open arms, and I've definitely strived to do that and think I've done it. Here's the hard part. Sometimes the kids come back without that understanding, and I would tell you that that's where I think both of my children are. And that means they're still living out they want a relationship with you in some kind of way, but they're still living out this narrative of the ex. Just like Padideh talked about with her stepson, you know, he'd gone off to school, he kind of figured out what was going on, and then when he was back with her again, the narrative began to surface, and he began to act out with his father saying, "You're this, 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 and this," which is just wholly untrue. And that can be the environment you live in when you're waiting at the end of the driveway waiting for your kids. I will tell you that it's almost a position of putting yourself in the way of narcissistic abuse again. So your kids,
100%.
when they live this out, they are living out the narrative of your narcissist ex, and they're giving you back what your narcissist ex would give you. In our last podcast, we talked about how narcissists use you. They don't love you. They love your things. They love what you can do for them. And with my two children who have returned to me, I would tell you that I think I feel a whole lot more of that than absolutely anything else. They're not so interested in me as a person. When I was sick, I started the podcast talking about Lyme disease. I had Lyme disease this summer and another co-infection. I'd kind of figured that out, and for Father's Day, my oldest daughter had said she wanted to take me to dinner, and the first words out of her mouth when I told her I was sick with Lyme disease was, "Are you contagious?" Which was interesting, and I didn't give her a smart-ass response, but I wanted to go, "Oh, yeah, absolutely. I'd show up for dinner just so I can contaminate you with whatever sickness I've got."
And
right?
everyone in the restaurant too, by the way. That's what I'm going to do.
Yeah. So, but it was all about her. And she didn't ever really ask me how I was doing during that conversation. It's me asking questions and her responding. She didn't ask me any questions. And most of the time they're in touch, they need something.
100%. 100%.
It's using you, not loving you. My youngest daughter, when she contacts me, she doesn't even say hello on the phone. She go, I'll go, "Hello." She go, "I'm at the car dealership, and I've got a situation with some tires here." And I'm like, "How are you doing?" She doesn't say hello most of the time when she even calls me.
I'm sorry. I know you can't see me, but my mouth just dropped to
Oh,
the floor.
I can see you.
I know you can see me, but our listeners can't. I mean, that is just rude.
It is rude.
And how old is she?
25.
So my youngest son, when he texts me, he says, "Hey." And I literally, every time he says hey, I say, I'm not a horse. I don't know why you say hey. Hey's for horses. And then he says LOL. I'm like, hi.
Mhm. Oh,
You know, because he's
I'd
always,
be happy with hay.
because he says hi, and then he's asking for something. And you know what? I did not realize this until you just said this, John. I think this is why my husband gets upset, and I don't really realize it. Again, I'm not a biological mom. He says they only want me for an ATM machine.
Yep.
And I don't realize how painful that is as a man to just be wanted, and they only call. The older one's gotten a little bit better because he's 27. And now he just texts me when he wants something. But it's like the other two, like, Dad, I need this. Dad, I need that. And it's one thing when your kids are younger, obviously. And it's one thing when they're in college and they need, but it's like incessantly that way, John. So I can imagine how frustrating that must be for you.
Well, when it's all there is, that
Yes.
it's deeply frustrating and actually deeply hurtful. It's like, okay, so all you want is car advice from me, or you want me to help you with this, you want me to help you move, you want me to take this or take that, and that's ultimately what it's been. So, with kids who have come to their senses, I think there's more to relationship. I think
Yes.
you can have a healthier relationship. They understand what you've been through. There's some compassion perhaps towards you for what you've been through with them. They have seen the narcissistic traits of your ex, and you live out in a relationship of meaning. But when they come back and they don't have this understanding, it is 100% putting yourself in the way of abuse by extension, and it's very difficult.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely saw that last year when we got the letter. I will be honest with you, my husband did not to this day read the letter. He said that if he reads the letter, it will probably make him go back to drinking. And my
Mm.
husband's 14 years sober. And he said, after everything I've done, like I had to do it as a father, but after every abuse I've been through with their mother, and now for this child, and we paid for all of their schooling, all of their college, their tuition, their food, their board, everything, books, everything.
It's a complete
And
lack of gratitude also.
this particular child went off to Spain the whole junior year, and we paid for that. So while we were working our tails off in Southern California, where we live and work, he was off to Spain. And then he writes this letter because he can't get a job and he's living with his mom. All that to say is I had to paraphrase, and John knows this, I had to paraphrase the letter for him because that's how hurtful it was for him.
Mhm.
And in the letter, the child actually gaslit or was trying to gaslight my husband and say, I know you think I should be grateful. Like that's gaslighting because you should be grateful no matter what, right?
Absolutely.
And so even when John, I think I sent you the letter, you said, your husband doesn't need to talk to this kid ever again or something like
Yeah.
that. And, but slowly, like other things that you said, we did because we respect you and we know
Yep.
you're a great father. And so now we're back on track with him, knowing that like there's still a exclamation point, knowing that he can turn on us or turn on my husband at any point. And
Absolutely, and it makes you wary of relationship with a kid. It makes you wary of what you say because I'm like,
yes,
okay, if I'm talking to her, all this is going back to the ex.
right,
Absolutely. So you have to
right.
watch what you say because anything you say can and will be used against you by the
Yes.
narcissist ex. When I after I got married, maybe or after I got divorced, maybe 2 years later, I got a car. And I knew I didn't tell anybody in my family that I got a car. I didn't post it on social media in any kind of way. And I didn't want to. Why? Because I know it would be, Dad's just selfish. All he does is spend money on himself. Because that's the mantra of my
Yes.
narcissist ex. She wants to control my finances and still would like to, and she would do it vicariously through my kids. Now, as the kids have gotten out of college and things, I've been able to eliminate the ATM. I literally had my youngest daughter call me up one day and she said, You need to buy me a passport. I go, why do I need to buy you a passport? Well, I'm graduating in May, and in August, I'm going to be going to Mexico with some friends, and I'm going to need a passport, and you need to buy me one. And I go, and you think this is my responsibility because why? Well, I went on a mission trip some years back, and you got passports for the other 3 kids, and they were a little older when they went, so they were 10-year passports. And since I was a kid, they only gave me a 5-year passport, so you owe me a passport. And I'm like, you're freaking out of your mind. You're going
Yeah.
to Mexico after you graduate. Guess what? That's on you. I'm not buying your passport.
Well,
But again, this is their mentality. They think that you just need to give to them. You just need to take care of absolutely every little thing. There's no gratitude in it whatsoever. And it is abuse by extension when you open
100%.
yourself up to kids who do not have this understanding of what took place. And that being said, it is a constant battle, and requires you to constantly remind yourself that they are frog in the kettle, that they were raised with this stuff with the narcissist, that they are playing out the narcissist narrative, and that really what this is that you're hearing is the narcissist words and not theirs.
Yes. 100%, absolutely. And they should still be grateful, even though you're their parent. They should still say thank you. They should say, Dad, you know what? I really would like you. Could you please help me with this? They don't come at it that way, John.
Not at all.
Kids with narcissistic abusive parents, they feel entitled because that is what the narcissist is like. They're entitled to your soul. They're entitled to your whole being. They're users. So they teach their child to be a user. They
Absolutely
teach their
correct.
child to be a user instead of saying, Dad, you know what? And don't give me the whole rationale, but just say, Dad, you know what? Could you just contribute? I'm really having a hard time and I really would like to. Instead of getting me maybe a birthday gift this year or Christmas gift, can you just help me with this? I think that would be a different conversation
Totally.
you would have, because you were like, literally, I'm not just saying this, John is one of the kindest, nicest, most generous people I know. But it's they come at you and you feel like you're back in the narcissistic web.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. Like, I know when I first divorced, my ex would text me. Of course, the kids were still in college by then. And she would go, okay, by the way, I need $800 from you. I'm like, what do you need $800 from me? Well, I spent this on the kids, and I need $800. So the first one I paid, which was dumb of me. I didn't challenge it. But the second one, I go, shit, again, $900. I need $900 from you. And I said, what's this for? Well, the kids needed this, and this. Now, my kids were over 18, so I paid no child support for them. I committed to paying for college, and she would come at me with these bills, and I would go, okay, the ATM days are over. First off, you will not be speaking for my children anymore. If they need
Correct.
money for something, they will tell me themselves. Second, this is shared responsibility, and I will have a receipt for absolutely everything that gets
Good.
spent, and you will be paying half of it. This is not just my responsibility. We are divorced. We're 50-50 on this stuff. I committed to the college stuff. The rest of it, you're a parent too. You're going to be spending 50% of that as well. But here's the other thing. I will not pay a dime towards anything that I'm not consulted on up front.
100%.
You will not just go and spend money and look over to me like I'm going to just dispense cash for you for all of these receipts. Because who knows who the hell, whether she's holding receipts back or not. She may give me receipts for $800 or something like that when it's really half the bill instead of all, or all the bill instead of half. So you just can't tell with them. So I got myself out of that picture with her. I made my kids, if they needed to be in touch, if they needed money, they had to be in touch with me directly. But still, on the other side of it, their model for this,
Yes.
the model of how they're going to treat you, is the narcissist. It will be.
Yes.
And it will require every ounce of love, every ounce of patience, every ounce of compassion, every ounce of remembering that these are your narcissist's words and not your kids
Yes.
when you're inside a relationship like this.
I mean, I will tell you, my husband told me when that letter came, he said, "I want nothing to do with this child anymore." I mean, he was done. When
I
I tell
get
you,
it.
he was done. And I said, "Let me, let me read it, let me digest it. I promise you, John, and you know this, for 3 nights I did not sleep. I was
I'll
crying,
bet.
I was upset, I was praying to God. I was like, what did we do wrong? Because I've been in their life for almost 8 years. So I saw what my husband, it wasn't my husband telling me what he did. I saw the sacrifices he made. And so I just got a book, by the way, called Doing Life with Adult Children, Keeping Your Mouth Shut and the Welcome Mat Out. I just got this book. So if anybody wants this book,
And
get this
that's
book.
the challenge. The title says the challenge, right?
Yes.
So the challenge is to be the prodigal father, right?
Yes.
Whose kid has wandered off and has come back, and to be this loving father who embraces them. But when they treat you like this, when they treat you with the abuse by
Yes.
extension from the narcissist, you feel like you don't want to be around them.
Well, they're the flying monkeys, right? We've talked about this before. They're the flying monkeys of the narcissist. The disappointing thing about this middle child was that he had figured it out. And when we took him to college, because we took him to see a couple colleges and then, all this stuff, he knew. So it's like after that, and then 4 years of college and dad, it's not all about paying, but we were there emotionally for him when he was breaking up
Yep.
with girlfriends. We had to go all the way to the East Coast when, things were falling apart. It was all the things that we had done, and
Yep.
we weren't keeping tabs. We were just like, we did this because we're your parents. That's what parents are supposed to do. But to get this letter was such a slap in the face. And my husband said, "I want nothing to do with him." And I said, Nope, we're gonna swallow our pride and our ego, and we're gonna realize that this is from the narcissist. I mean, first thing you said, John, when you read the letter, you said, "Okay, this is his ex-wife talking." My
Absolutely.
sissy said the same thing. This is his ex-wife. And so little bit by little bit, we not saying anything bad about their mom, but just said, "Okay, you know what? I'm gonna do better." My husband literally said, "I'm gonna do better." And now when we call him, he's like, "Dad, I'm busy. I'm working," because he's on like a different coast. But to me, that was like, wow. She got in 6 months, she got her fingers into you, her nails into
Got
you,
her claws in. Yep.
got her claws in, and but I don't blame the child. I mean, he's still a child, even though he's like in his early 20s. He's still a child, and he's a product of this. I hate to say it, but this awful narcissist, right? So,
Absolutely. Well, and again, that just goes to show you how easily the kids can be manipulated back into something as well. But
yes,
John had it spot on. You know, it's hard enough to take abuse from your narcissist. But to have their words come back at you from your children, and your kids act like they're elevated and they're
yes,
judging you and every
yes,
action you do with the attitudes of your narcissist ex is ridiculously hard. And the emotion John had is valid. It's, I don't want to be around you. This is
yes,
not the grand reunion I would like for it to have been. I
right,
would have loved for you to come back where you came to your senses and you go, you know what? I effed up. I should never have done this. I understand what the narcissist has done to me, somewhat at least. I understand now what they've done to you. And we can meet, and I'm going to love you instead of using you. But that's not always the case. Your kids can come back and continue to abuse you and treat you like all you are is an ATM or a car repairman.
Well, you know what? One of the things in the letter, which I thought was interesting, I have my own private social media, private Instagram, which I
Yeah.
barely ever post. And so the 3 boys see my Instagram. And one of the things that we haven't traveled much just because we're both very, very busy. I had put my dog, my rescue dog from the LA wildfires in my Tesla when I got my Tesla.
Yeah.
John, you were here 2 years
Oh,
ago.
yeah.
And he said, and my stepmom got a new Tesla. By the way, he does like what is that to do about you? Like, you also have a car. Your mom has 2 cars. Like, I'm not supposed to have a car? So you know
Right.
what I did after that? I actually went back, archived a bunch of my things on Instagram, and I told my husband, I will never, ever post on Instagram again, because he's now weaponizing
Yep.
my life. Like, I'm an
Absolutely.
attorney, and I bought and I wanted this cherry red Tesla for 3 years before I even got one.
Yep.
And John, you were here actually. We had our podcast launch party 2 years ago, and John was actually here when I went to pick up my car.
Yep.
And he actually weaponized my own car and said, well, you've got money for this. And it's like, well, wait, when have you asked for money and we have not given you money? And so it was all the things, and it was
Yep.
like, wow. For 3 days, I literally cried, wept, sobbed, wasn't eating. I mean, I was so distraught because I was like, wow, like, I thought he was going to graduate and he was, like, at the graduation and the lunch we had for him and all the things, like, he was very happy and thankful. But it was when he went to live with her for 6 months and couldn't find a job himself because he wasn't listening to our advice, that he was
Mhm.
miserable. And now that he has a job, he's like, oh no, everything's back. And it's like, no, that letter will be in my mind for the rest of my life. Like,
When it makes you wanna guard yourself and look, I'm
100%.
pretty well when it comes to things I'm doing on the whole, I'm pretty largely radio silent on social media. And the other thing I did was
Yes.
I finally this past year, I blocked any of my family members I was not in contact with, who I had to go no contact with. That included kids who, that it'll include kids who've chosen not to have a relationship with me. And I decided, and my oldest, when she came back to me, she said, why did you delete me off Facebook? Why did you unfriend me? And why did you do the same to your parents and to the other kids? And I said, I didn't do it to everybody. I said, I didn't do it to do it to my youngest because she's been in a relationship with me. Although feels strange sometimes, she can have a window into my life. And I said, but I decided about a year ago, maybe not even that long ago, that anybody in my life who acted like they didn't really want a relationship with me did not deserve a window into my life on social media. And I blocked everybody that did that.
Great. That's great response.
So I said, if you want a relationship with me, then I'm happy to go add you back. But I'm not in touch with my parents. I'm not in touch with the other 2 kids. And they're not going to have a window into my life and report back so that this narrative can continue, because anything you say, anything that you do will be redefined by the narcissist. I'll tell you a story. So when I was still married to my narcissist ex, she had we had a hot tub out back and we were having some conversation. She goes, "Oh, I'm so mad. I'm just so angry." I said, "Why are you angry?" "My father." And now, mind you, mom was a covert narcissist and acted out against dad, spoke badly against dad. So my ex inherited the covert narcissism from her mother. She goes, "I'm so mad at my father." "Why are you mad at your father?" "He got a timeshare in Branson, Missouri." "Okay. Why is that? That's a problem. Why?" "He's so selfish. All he does is spend money on himself." And I said, "So you think he's going to Branson by himself?" "No." "You think he might be taking your mother out to Branson?" "Probably." "Do you think he might even ask our family to go to Branson sometimes, or your brother's family?" "Maybe." "So how is this being spent on himself?" "Well, that's all he does. That's all he does in life. He only spends time on spends money on himself. He's a farmer. He has to have the newest equipment all the time." And I said, "So he's a farmer?" "Yes, he got a new combine. He gets a new combine every year." And I said, "Doesn't he have like thousands of acres?" "Yes." And I said, "Maybe that's his way of keeping it from breaking down. And these are
Right.
business expenses. These are not home expenses. So you ought to understand." She couldn't get out of it and couldn't undo it in her head because her mother had badmouthed her father. Her mother had controlled the narrative, and dad couldn't even do something nice. And by the way, He did invite his wife out to Branson. He did invite her brothers and their family out to Branson. He did invite my ex and our family out to Branson. Of course he did,
Right.
because it was the narrative of the ex. Fast forward about 10 years, and my youngest daughter says, "I'd like to talk to you for a minute." I said, "Okay." She says, and we go sit down out. I got a pickup truck, and there are a couple of old VWs and my ex's car. And we sit on the tailgate of the pickup truck, and she says, "I understand that you spend all our family's money on your cars." And I said, "Excuse me?" "Yes. You spend all our family's money on your cars." And I said, "Really?" I said, Why do you say that?" "Well, that's what mom says. You spend all our family's money on your cars." And I said, "Okay, let's do some math. Can we do some
And
math?"
this is when you were married
This is
still,
while I was
right?
married. This is my
Right.
17-year-old.
Okay.
So ultimate in disrespect, but I'm like, I'm taking these. Go, okay, we're going to do a little math here. I go, so I bought my car for $1,200, my old VW, and I worked on some other cars and got paid to do it, and I put a new motor in it, and I traded some other work to go get the car painted. So the car I had really cost me very little money. My cost on the car was about $2,000 of our money, and I've been driving it for the last 5 years. And I said to her, "So this truck we're sitting on right here, who drives the truck right now?" "Well, the kids do." "Okay, so that's the kids' car. Um, so who drove the truck before you guys were driving?" "Well, mom did. That was mom's car. She was driving it around." "Okay. Well, that truck cost $15,000. And your mother got the new car, and I got the old one that I have to work on, which I enjoy, which is fine, but my car was far less expensive." I said, "Now we've got a minivan over there, and do you know what that cost?" "No." That was $23,000. "Okay. So on the two cars that your mother has driven over the last X number of years, we're at $38,000. And mine, we're total for the cars I've had, we're at 8. So tell me whose money is getting spent on cars?" And it occurred to me, again, these things come directly from the narcissist.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
when you're in a situation like this where your kids have come back and they don't have this understanding, it will feel like you're abused, and it will take every ounce of your energy to remember a couple of things. One, that you still love them, because like John
Yeah, my
didn't
husband.
yeah, he didn't feel like being around him. And I get that. When you're around somebody who all they do is call
Count
you when
your
they need
money.
something, ask for cash.
Count your money that you're
Ca-
working hard
Yep,
for. This is your
yep,
money.
yep. That it's very hard to be around people like that. Very hard to be around them when they don't care about you, but they care about your cash and the things that you can do for them. It's just very difficult. And there's a lot of that in this generation anyways. This generation, the younger generation, is rather entitled anyhow. So you see a lot of it anyways. It's part of narcissism too. But with narcissism, it may be turned up a notch. So in order to be in relationship with your kids, it will take every ounce of energy to stand at the end of the driveway and to wait with open arms and to continue to love them when you continue to be beat over the head with the bat your narcissist used to take to you.
Yeah.
It's difficult. The reunion is not what you hope for. The reunion is not what you expect, and it will take all of your energy to remember the love you have for them, and to remember that what you hear out of their mouths is actually what your narcissist would say and not their own words.
Well, we have the benefit that I don't want to say benefit, but we have the ability, because this child is across the state. My husband does, they one of the things that they did was they put every Sunday they will check in with each other and have a call and do FaceTime, or have a call, just check in. Well, now because of work, he's been busy on the weekends. He's like relaxing or whatever. But literally for us, I will be honest with you, John, it's an exclamation point. It's like now we know what we know, and we can't unknow what we know. And so we're like, we just know, like, no more telling. I mean, we don't travel much. We travel within the states, but we don't go
Right.
internationally. So we're not posting, we're not telling about our cars. I even told my husband, like, I shouldn't have put my dog inside my Tesla to be like, oh, look, River's driving the Tesla or something. I was trying to be cheeky about it. I said, nothing. And I told him, actually, because last night we were at Gypsy King's concert. I said, I'd really like to post this on my stories, but I'm afraid that your son's going to say, oh, they've got money for a concert. How dare they?
Absolutely.
Even though
it's
he
the
goes,
Miranda warning. Anything you can and say will be used against you.
well, even though he goes to concerts, he does all that. He usually lives a full life, okay? But I said I might start like another one just for my real friends and like my family, like my mom and my sister. That kind of like that's how we share information. And so my husband said, yeah, maybe you want to do that, because if he's still following you, because he loves me, I know that he loves me, but he's an extension of his mother, and he's her flying monkey now. Now, when he moves out and gets his own place, that might be another story. But our hearts were literally broken. And I think I called you several times just
Yeah.
in tears, because I was like, he was the good one. Like, he was the one that got it. Like, the oldest one is 100% estranged from her. But I was like, he was the good one. Like, he was the one that knew. He was the one that was smart and all this stuff. Like, and you kept saying, like, you just gotta forgive, let go. And I will tell you that, like you said, if God forbid something happens to my husband, I don't think that the middle one, honest to God, I don't think he would care.
Mhm.
He's kind of like, he just has used him for 8 years. I've watched this happen. And if we don't give the money, then we're bad parents. And how come so-and-so's parents do? And that manipulation has, turned him probably into a narcissist as well. And he's a malignant. I would say he's
Wow.
very overt about, and he thinks he's talking for his other two brothers, and he's not, because we've got great relationships with those two. Like, the oldest, I'm friends with, texts me, we talk. He doesn't ask for money, he doesn't ask for anything. We're always the one that's like, no, we want to help, this and that. We're just going to do as the Lord reveals what to do, we'll do, but we're not going to go out of our way. But we're
Mhm.
also not going to give him information, right, to go back to his mom with info.
Well, it's very difficult when everything that happens in your life gets reframed by the narcissist into something negative. I, you know, I get, I here's another thing. Like, uh, 2 or 3 years after my son graduated from college, and again, at graduation from college, the payroll, you're off the payroll on your own financially. We're not paying for car insurance. The rest of it's on you. They all had jobs within months after they graduated. So my ex texted me one time and said, "Hey, well, there's an appointment with our son that he had back 3 or 4 years ago, and the bill just came in, and and he would like for you to pay it." And I said, "No." Well, it happened. The appointment was 3 years ago, and I said, "The bill just came in today." "No, I'm not going to pay it. I'm not going to pay it." The arrangement is that after he graduates, all of his financial burdens are on him. And whether this was incurred back then and they forgot to send the bill, I kind of don't care. But he's going to be on his own. Now, here's what I can tell you with 100% certainty happened after I said I was not going to pay.
Oh, yeah, I can already tell.
My ex told him, "Well, I talked to your father about paying for this, and he's not going to go do it. So you know what? I'm going to pay it for
100%.
you."
100%. Triangulation. They love this.
It is, I guarantee you. And again, it puts more of a wedge between me and him. These kinds of things are happening all the time. You
Right.
have to realize that. And if you have a kid who doesn't get it, every little thing that
Yes.
happens to you will go back to the narcissist, and they will reframe it and make it out on you. When I finally did get back with my oldest, she even told me some of the stories. She goes, "Well, why are you not in touch with your mother and father?" And I said, Here's why. My parents have chosen to only go and spend time with my ex. When they come to town, they stay over there. She goes, "They don't call you?" And I go, "No, they don't call you." Well, didn't they write you a letter talking to you about this stuff? I go, "No, they haven't written me anything."
So she was hearing lies, basically.
So she was hearing lies, and part of our first conversation, and I allowed her to direct the conversation. Part of the conversation was her telling me these lies that had been told to her that paint me as the bad guy, when actually none of this stuff, these things were all fabrications anyways. And I let her direct it. And as she wants to continue to have those conversations in the days ahead, I'm happy to have them. Maybe they're a part of her coming to her senses.
Yes.
But you have to understand that everything you say can and will be used against you by the narcissist, and it will reframe absolutely anything, even the positive things you do in your life, as negative. They will make that happen.
Yeah, I would just say one thing. The alternative route was to pay the bill, and this is who I am as a person. I would have said, and always go back to my husband, let's pay the bill so she doesn't have one more thing, and this is for our son.
Yep.
So I do a lot of like behind the scenes management of this stuff because
Mhm.
my husband doesn't have my husband, by the way, his name is John. So when John says John, he's referring to my husband.
That's right.
But so I'm the type of stepmom that's like, no, we're going to pay that bill because I don't want her to have one more thing, and this is for our son. So that's
Mhm.
another way of doing it too. Just another perspective,
It is.
and then it's off, and it's like, no, I don't want her to pay half. I'm going to pay. And listen, we have the good fortune of being able to do that. I know not everyone can do that, so please, I'm not judging, but to say, we're going to pay this bill. And then I will say, text them like, we'll pay this bill in full, whatever. But again, none of that stuff, by the way, matters to them because they think that they're entitled to it anyway because they're the child of a narcissist. But for your own conscience, you're like, you know what? This is one less thing.
Well, the game for the narcissist changes once you divorce, and it becomes, since they can't manipulate you directly, they come at you through your children, and that's the thing you ultimately have to realize, that the game has changed, and Padideh said it. Well, how do you manage this? You have to not give up on your kids. You have to remember where the nastiness comes from, and you have to love them with everything you're capable of, even sometimes when you don't feel it because they're treating you so nasty. It's very, very difficult if your kids don't have that understanding to have them return to you. And again, it's like opening yourself up to potential abuse from the narcissist. And they'll figure out ways to go do it. Padideh, I will bet you that even though you paid that bill for your kid, his ex figured a way to
Oh yeah,
go back and
100%.
badmouth you.
Yeah.
They're just made of money, and
Yes.
I had to go beg for it, and they just don't want to spend it on you. If they had wanted to spend it on you, they would have just done so already, and I wouldn't have had to beg. They're such selfish people.
Yeah. Well, here's the good news. While she's playing, checkers back in, wherever the heck she is, I'm playing chess. And the three boys love me. They adore me. We have such a great relationship.
Well, you
We
love them like
laugh.
your own.
Yeah, we laugh, we joke, we do all the things. And you know what? At the end of the day, there is a God that sees all things. Not that I do it for credit, but like there is a God that sees all things. And I feel sympathy because I had great parents growing up, great siblings. I feel sympathy for somebody that was raised by a narcissist. And it's like now
Absolutely.
you're mirroring this idiot demon, basically. And so I just call them demons now because that's what they are. They're Satan spawns. Now you're, so how can I blame my child for that? I can't blame my child for that.
That's
It's
right.
just another way that the enemy's trying to get a foothold. And it's like, nope, I'm going to pay that bill. I said, I told my husband, if we have to make 2 installments or 3, it doesn't matter because you know what? She's not going to tell my kid that this wasn't paid. And so, but then you took a different route and you're like, no, don't care. But my husband would be the same as you, by the way, if I was in he's told me a million times, because of you, I have a better relationship with him because I don't give a damn. No, he's like, I've given 80% of my wealth so she can live on a lake in a 5-bedroom with 2 cars and all the things, like no mortgage, nothing. He's like, do you think I give a damn about a 22-year-old that just graduated? He's like, I don't give a damn. I'll walk away and I'll be scot-free. But I'm the one that says, no, we have to sacrifice because remember what it was like to live with her. And remember how she had you fooled under the cloud of darkness.
Yep.
And he's like, oh, yeah, I do remember that. So, but all that to say is we worked it out by the grace of God. My stoicism helped, but I just feel sorry. I feel bad. Imagine you're a kid and you just don't know better. So please, if you're out there, your kid is just being used like you were.
And you have to remember that. You have to remember they are victims of abuse just like you are, and it looks different in them. And pray that they come to their senses so that they understand. Because like I talked about my ex being having the generational narcissism passed down. You hope and pray that as you move away from the narcissist, as you divorce and you have these conversations, that even your kids will understand, because it's for their benefit in the long run as well. So make sure you keep loving, don't give up, and remember that they really have been abused as well and are being abused, even with the narrative that the narcissists continue to fly.
One of the things that John said to me last year, I remember it clearly because I have a great memory and audiographic memory. He said, your 3 sons are male victims of female narcissists. And that's John's, that's his whole Instagram handle. And
Yep.
I literally, it felt like I was punched in the stomach. I go, what did you say? He said, you do realize that they are actually male victims of female narcissists, their mother. And that to me, it changed the trajectory of how I saw it. And instead of saying these are bratty, they're bratty or they're entitled or whatever, I was like, you know what? They don't know any better. Should they know better? Yes, but they don't know, and they're boys. And so we've said to them multiple occasions, if you ever need to see a therapist or whatever, my husband has said that to them, do not be ashamed. Boys do actually cry, and that's okay because they
Yep.
have cried with us because of her. And, but yeah, I think the generational narcissism is something that we should talk about in season 6, John, because you said
Yeah.
that and I was like, wow.
Yeah. Yeah, and it won't take so long now that we're both healthy and we can start recording again after a rough summer for us both. So we're looking forward to season 6. We're going to keep going. We do have some exciting topics, hopefully some new guests as well, and it ought to be a really great and educational time. As we tell these things, it's our hope for you that you really identify, because our stories are also your stories, and we want you to understand that you're not in this alone, that your kids are worth the fight. And we really do hope that as we wade through these conversations, you're understanding as well what you can do to help yourself in your own situation. So, Padideh, until next time,
Yes.
I'll see you again soon. And we hope that the rest of you have a wonderful day and that you live narcissist-free.
Thank you for listening to the Narcissist Abuse Recovery Channel. Be sure to follow and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. To hear other episodes or read the associated blogs, visit www.narcissistabuserecoverychannel.com and be sure to follow us on Instagram with the handle narc.podcast. The guest views, thoughts, and opinions expressed are their own. The information presented is for general informational purposes only and is not intended to be legal advice. The co-hosts are not licensed therapists. Seek professional help, as information is often state-specific. The Narcissist Abuse Recovery Channel is produced in studios in California and Georgia.